Good afternoon, colleagues. We're about to start, and before I do a word of welcome, I immediately would like to call our colleagues from interpreting services, colleague Annette de Jager, will just give a brief explanation and do some practical arrangement.
Molweni, goedemiddag. Good afternoon, colleagues. At the university, we want to promote a multilingual mindset, and we want everyone to feel like they have ownership over the space. And one of the ways that we do that is to offer interpreting services into Afrikaans and isiXhosa. So that is what we have available today. You would have been able to indicate on the RSVP form whether you like interpreting. So if you did indicate that you'd like interpreting, please just raise your hand or come to the front and we'll give you the equipment. And then please just tell us what language you'd like to listen to. Afrikaans is on channel 2, Afrikaans op kanaal 2, and isiXhosa is on channel 3. Thank you so much.
There's a hand on my right. Okay. So everyone has received the device, and we thank our colleagues together with Sonnet. We also have Asipe, Sokibi, and then specifically also Renee Wheeler. Thanks for rendering this service. Colleagues, this is our first staff assembly for 2024, so we welcome you. We also say welcome to our colleagues on the satellite campuses who are attending through streaming. Today, as you can see in the program, the rector, Prof. Wim de Villiers, will give a presentation on our university's performance during the first quarter of this year. We'll hear from Prof. Stan du Plessis on Sunfin, and from our registrar, Dr. Ronald Retief, on Sun Student, and there will be opportunity for some questions and discussion. We remind you, colleagues, that you have had the opportunity to submit questions prior to the meeting on ecoms@sun.ac.za. We received a question that colleague Stan will address when we move to the question session and discussion session, and we invite you again that you can also during the course of the assembly pose questions on that same address, ecoms@sun.ac.za. And of course you'll have opportunity to also pose questions here in the room. Colleagues, this is the moment normally when we become quiet. We think of everyone who has passed in the ranks of our staff and students, also alumni, other members of the extended university family, and also in our own family circles and circles of friends. We think about our colleagues, we remember them, rekoppelteken member, meaning again a member, always a member, always part of us. May they rest in peace, and may their loved ones find the strength to carry on. Colleagues, without further ado, I will hand to our rector, but please let us just stay silent for one moment. Prof. Wim.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nico, and it's great to see all of you here. And I'm going to press my timer now because the registrar told me that I must not be long. She's got lots to talk about. Okay, so this will go peep at 15 minutes or even before that time. So when I walked over here, I was struck by what a beautiful day it is and how sunny it is, and it is actually unseasonably warm. And I was also struck by what a beautiful campus this is. And it's a hive of activity, and it's wonderful. And it's the day before a public holiday. And I believe a good number of us have actually put in some leave for Friday as well. So it may be a long weekend, and next weekend again followed. It's a long weekend. So things are good. And then I thought, we had a wonderful week at the university last week. And this is apart from some of the wins that we've had in the Varsity Cup. It's also these three things that I think we can be really proud of and happy with is the third installment of the Nobel in Africa Symposium that occurred at Stellenbosch Institute of Advanced Studies last week. And the focus this time around was on micro development economics, and it was a real who's who of the world-class scientific research and innovation. And we had Nobel laureates here, Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee also gave a public lecture. I don't think I've ever seen Prof. Stan as an economist, and Professor Ingrid Woolard, the Dean of Economics and Management Sciences. They were so happy last week. They were truly in their element. So that was it was 80 to 100 world-class researchers and scholars here from our continent and across the world. And secondly was SIAN, the Stellenbosch Institute of Stellenbosch International Academic Network. They brought together partners from all across the globe, more than 100 of them who came here from more than 70 institutional partners, an opportunity for our African partners to really network with other international collaborators. And thirdly, last Wednesday, Professor Sibu Moyo launched her Sunrise program. And this is Stellenbosch's program to foster and to promote the next generation of leading scholars to enter the professoriate. So it's 35 to 40 young or mid-level academics who entered the program last week, and we will have 120 over the next 3 years. So this is the next generation as us always get out of the way. So these are things to feel good about at our institution. And I want to give you a brief overview of what happened in the first term. And the first is sort of 15 minutes after I arrived back from a summer break. This is what happened. That was, as you are well aware of, is the Volgenhof matter, and how we had decided to deal with this is to appoint a panel to investigate that. The objectives have been circulated. These are the terms of reference for the panel. It's to understand the content and context of what was found there, to consider if human rights were infringed upon, to establish whether practices have been covered up by staff, students, or alumni, and to assess whether these practices contravene SU policies and rules. The panel is chaired, independently. It's a panel is chaired by Advocate Nick de Jager, who is a SC, a senior counsel in the Cape Bar, and assisted by a very experienced retired registrar, Dr. Derek Swimmer, and of course our own Ms. Penny van der Bank, who is a deputy registrar. And the report is ongoing. Public submissions have closed, and there are now interviews ongoing, and we would like this to be concluded as soon as possible, but I can't give you a definitive date on this yet. Welcoming 2024. I think there's a very, very successful welcoming program, close, and as you can see on the top there, this is the drone-generated picture of our welcoming ceremony at the Donnie Craven Stadium at the end of January. And I think what has now become a firm part of our calendar is the Dream Walk following the welcoming ceremony. I think that's truly a memorable occasion, and that's now what I would call a proper new tradition that is now becoming firmly established. And it's a joyful occasion to see all these bright-eyed, young, and bushy-tailed young people that are so keen on realizing their dreams, and we give them an opportunity to do so. So, registration this year, and also the first time entry newcomers. And as you can see on this slide, it's just from 2020. It shows you on the left in the maroon there, that's the enrollments, and in gold is the targets. And you can see for 2024, we've exceeded our target with almost 7,000 newcomer first years or entrants, and which certainly is more than what we targeted for. And I think we can all attest to some of the pressures that have resulted in. For the main three faculties accounted for significant increase or over-enrollment, if I may call it that, and that's the faculty of engineering, natural science, and also economic and management sciences. So as I said, there's a lot of life on campus, and the NILC is very busy. So it's a fantastic campus to be on, but it also has its challenges, and town is also certainly feeling it in terms of traffic, etc., etc. So we're soon to have our March graduation ceremonies next week, and this is the slide that deals with some of the data there. So a couple of things on this slide. So this is then the conclusion of academic year 2023, and what this will mean is that in total, together with the December 2023 graduation ceremony, we will award 8,870 qualifications. So that exceeds last year's. In addition to that, as you can see on the slide here, what I'm impressed by is that, and this is a trend for the last number of years now, that we're actually awarding more postgraduate qualifications than undergraduate qualifications. And so that's really in keeping with the top research-intensive university. And further, you can see on the right there, as in terms of the types of qualifications that are awarded, I'm very pleased that we're awarding 319 doctoral qualifications, and that's a significant increase also from last year, and that is really gratifying because because of COVID and also because of a decrease in NRA funding, there's been a little bit of a dip in that. And you can also see at the bottom left there the gender distribution, more females. And also you can see the different qualifications in the different faculties. So in keeping with being a top South African research intensive university, according to the official DHET figures, we're doing very well in terms of per capita and in terms of total research output. And in the bottom paragraph there, you see the absolute numbers that last year we had more than 1,450 signed contracts, and we also submitted 3,055 research articles to DHET for subsidy purposes, and that is the highest number yet by quite a margin. And to put this into some perspective is if you look at our publication output from 2005 to 2022, you can see the numbers there. And this is from data that were provided to us by, it's a bibliometric analysis, a very extensive analysis of the university's research productivity and performance that was done by Professor Johan Mouton's unit SciStip. And so this shows, as you can see there, in the column marked 2005, you see a very consistent and steady increase in the total publication output from 2005 to 2022. Total publication output in 2005, 826 or so, and in 2022, 2,255, and I've just given you the number of where we are already in 2023. That is what a top research-intensive university does, and that is what I think we're extremely thankful to you all for contributing, because it cannot be done without you. So, in terms of, but what I'm specifically very pleased with and proud of is, and that's when I started my term in April 2015, I really wanted to focus on internationalization, and I wanted to focus on research. And what do we see here? We see here the trend in terms of foreign research collaboration. You see that line in red. You see how that is increasing. It's in terms of co-authorship. It means that we are collaborating with the rest of the world and with all these different partners that we have at other international institutions. And you see actually the line in green, which would be single author publications, that seem to be declining, as well as the line in blue, and the line in green, which is those in South African publications only, national publications. But I'm very pleased that this line in red means we are part of a global community. But not only that, the work that's being done is increasingly highly regarded. And this is the citation impact of articles. So what does it actually mean? Who bothers about this, what you're publishing and what this university is producing in terms of research? And you see there's a steady increase over the years and the last number of years in what the citation, who else cites this work, who reads it, who uses this work to also increase their work. So I'm very pleased with that. The third point that I wanted to do when I was appointed rector was I consider myself the university's chief fundraiser. But I can't do this without the very capable assistance of development and alumni relations, and specifically here I want to pay tribute to Karen Bruns and her team. And we've also had success in this regard. So what you can see here is last year in 2023, in terms of fundraising, we raised 355 million rand, and that compares to 280 million in 2022. Where's this applied to? So it's applied to, as you can see on this pie chart, it's predominantly student support for almost 40% or so, and then also for the establishment of research chairs and research scholarships. So that is what these funds are applied to. Things looking good for this year. For the first 2 months of this year, we're already exceeding what was achieved last year by more than 20%, and that 110 million rand was raised in the first 2 months of the year. What are the challenges? There's some ongoing sectoral challenges, load shedding. I don't think I'm going to say anything more about load shedding. And then the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, the funding NSFAS, we had a meeting again with NSFAS last year. It really commenced this year with many students being uncertain about their NSFAS application status. it led to, as you well know, some serious accommodation problems for many students that we had to deal with. That we had to increase our contingency plans with regard to emergency accommodation, etc. And also how these different accommodation allowances for metro and rural institutions are willy-nilly applied by the NSFAS board. So this is an ongoing work in progress, and we'll continue to have to deal with it. And in the next presentations by Prof. Stan and Ronell, they will deal with this as well, because they're going to deal predominantly with SunFin and SunStudent, and also some of the aspects with SunLearn, because I want to acknowledge upfront that I'm fully aware of the many, many pain points and frustration that you all have experienced since the beginning of the year with some of these major system implementation initiatives that we've installed, and the problems associated with. And I thank you for your forbearance and also for your feedback. We can report some progress in some of these. I think SunFin, SunLearn, and SunStudent, Dr. Retief will report on, but I thank you for your attention. And now over to Professor Stan. Applause, please.
Thank you very much, Professor de Villiers. Colleagues, I'm just waiting for my slides to appear, or am I supposed to do something to make them appear? Well, I will just talk. A student once asked me, what did we do at conferences to present academic papers before PowerPoint? And my answer to him was, we used the power of speech. And so let me do that. I'm going to talk to you about SunFin, and then about a brief comment about the budget and our financial risks. So on the SunFin side, we are now out of the phase in the implementation of SunFin that we called hypercare. So hypercare was a very intense period in which we had to both implement the functionality and also help users to use them and roll out additional functionalities in the course of the second half of last year. And of course, that was very painful and disruptive to the university, and we are very grateful for your forbearance for that. But we are now out of that phase. We are now into what's called a business as usual phase, which doesn't mean that there are no further disruptions or shortcomings. We are still implementing additional phases of functionality, but the big implementation phase is behind us. And I'll speak a little bit about some of the outstanding matters in a few minutes' time. And thank you, colleagues, for bearing with us, and also thank you for helping us to get through hypercare, because hypercare is not just work for colleagues in the finance division and in the IT division. This is work for all of us to get the university's business process onto a new financial system. Secondly, we have a few milestones that I want to just share with you. When you work on Windows, for example, you know that regularly there's an update that appears in your feed. And when you use a cloud-based software system like Oracle Cloud Financials, which is the platform for SunFin, there are also quarterly updates. These are potentially disruptive to us because the system is updated, but we've implemented the system in all our business processes. And so behind the scenes, my colleagues prepare SunFin for these regular quarterly updates. And I'm happy to report that you don't know that we've had 3 of these updates over the course of the last couple of quarters, and that's good news. The fact that you don't know about the updates is exactly what we strive for. They must seamlessly integrate into our system, and I'm very grateful. These are not trivial updates, and I'm happy that they were done successfully. Then the projects and grants functionality is being rolled out, and that affects the largest number of cost centers within the university. So we started with more than 15,000 cost centers. We're going to end with much less than 1,000 cost centers when all is said and done. But to get there, the key functionality lies in projects and grants. It is a very different way of operating from the way we've operated before, and I'm very grateful for the uptake that we've already seen and for the way it's being rolled out, and I'll say something more about that with the assistance of the Senate Task Group in a moment. Then we've worked away that backlog on the procurement side. You know that we have a backlog of payment to creditors. All of the ones that we know of have been resolved. So if you know of further backlogs, please contact the colleagues in finance so that we can resolve those. In addition, we also have resolved all of those blocked vendor accounts that caused so much unhappiness, and rightly so, towards the end of last year. Some of our vendors blocked us because they didn't get timeliest payments. So those vendor blocks have all been addressed. All of the ones that we know of. Again, if you know of one that's still not resolved in your area, please let us know. And then I want to talk about the Sunfin Senate work group. So Senate asked us at the end of last year to work with colleagues, not just from Senate, but also from other areas in the university, to really address some of the specific pain points that our users were experiencing at the end of last year. And so that group, and these are really operational points, but the operational points really mattered. And so we pulled in colleagues from academic departments, from the research environment, from the fourth income stream environment, from internationalization, and from our professional and administrative support services. And they literally took their agenda from the tickets that you logged onto the Sunfin service desk and have been working towards practical solutions for those. The most important of which is what we call the solution to comprehensive financial reporting. So those of you who run research units know that you have found it a struggle to report in the way that you used to report in Sunfin. And now we have worked with the colleagues in research and, our Division for Research Development, the Center for Business Intelligence, and our colleagues in the IT division to develop a comprehensive operational report which will make your life a lot easier. We are currently testing it. We developed this in collaboration with colleagues who are running those large research centers so that we know that this report will deliver the functionality that you require. We are currently testing that very intensively because I think you will appreciate we can't release a report, especially on finance, in which there could be a mistake. So we have to be very rigorous in this testing, and we hope to release this by the end of March. But the feedback, and in fact yesterday at Senate, Professor Meyer also indicated, he's a member of the task group, that our expectation is that this will address most of the pain points that we've heard from in that third income stream environment. And then finally, colleagues, we have worked down most of the outstanding tickets on our log, but of course they keep coming in. My colleagues keep working hard at resolving those, and I do want to ask you if you have outstanding Sunfin issues, which of course there will still be some that will arise, please use that Sunfin help desk. Log the tickets through the JIRA board on the Sunfin help desk. That's where we can also monitor the progress with addressing your question. So it'll be very helpful if you use that reporting mechanism. So that's what I want to say about Sunfin. Now I want to say something about our finances. When I spoke to you last year, this was on the eve of the council meeting, and our council approved our budget for this year as well as the financial plan for 2025 until 2029, which is our regulatory requirement. But that approval is always subject to confirmation by government that the subsidy is as we budget for. We get that in a so-called ministerial letter, and this year it arrived towards the end of December. And in the event, our subsidy was 2.887 million less than the 2.026 billion that we expected from government. So it's not a big deviation. We try to budget very conservatively so that we don't get surprised or get unpleasant surprises And in this case, the 3 million less, or almost 3 million less, was easily absorbed in the budget without having to change any of the allocations to faculties or divisions. And in fact, colleagues, that is precisely why we budget conservatively. Is you never know when the subsidy letter is a little bit lower than you expect. And so we always leave a small margin of error in that budget. But as you know, the budget in total, the subsidy for all universities were cut. And that means that we still face a financial outlook for this university and for all universities that is dramatically constrained. And we as a university made decisions that dealt with that. I'm very grateful for the fact that in all the divisions and in all the faculties, collectively, you and your leadership addressed this challenge last year so that we already, as we stand here, have a sustainable budget over the planning horizon. That puts us in a different position from many of the other universities who face exactly the same problems, but are sort of hoping to address that in the course of this year. That is a much worse position to be in. I know it was a painful adjustment last year, but it's better to have that adjustment behind us than to have that adjustment in front of us. So colleagues, we confirmed also last year that our fee decisions will remain as they were placed in front of council. The minister proposed some different adjustments, but we stick with the adjustments that was approved by council. That's also exactly as the Higher Education Act requires. The Higher Education Act gives the independence for these decisions to our council, and our council takes these decisions for the best financial and sustainable interests of our university. But we have to then provide gap funding to NSFA students because the NSFA students can expect a fee adjustment in accordance with the minister's expectations, and we indeed have budgeted for that gap funding as well. So we will cope for the difference between our adjustment and the ministerial adjustment for NSFA students, but the remainder of our budget is as I presented it to you at the end of last year. Colleagues, we are going to do further work this year to unlock efficiencies and also look for opportunities to build on the financial sustainability of this university in the years to come, because we know that the financial environment external to the university is not going to become easier. But you don't have to be despondent. I was very encouraged by the way you responded last year to these challenges. In fact, I'm delighted that I'm doing my job precisely at this university, which is showing a real ability to cope and to understand this difficulty. And so, colleagues, we're going to do further work with leadership across the university this year, and I have no doubt that we will succeed and maintain this as a thriving and sustainable university. Thank you very much, Rector.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Before I start with my presentation, I wish to acknowledge the unprecedented pain and trauma that this system implementation has caused over the past months. I know that colleagues and students were under severe pressure to continue with the academic project while trying to navigate the many challenges that emerged as new capabilities were deployed in the SUN student system. I'm aware of the frustration, the anxiety and the anger of internal and external stakeholders, legitimately so, and the subsequent reputational damage to our institution. I particularly regret that many of our students had to suffer due to late payments of bursaries and allowances. I know that there are real people impacted and that one student being negatively affected is one too many. So I apologize to you all and to the rest of our colleagues not here today, and to our students that we find ourselves in this situation. So for the purposes of this presentation, I will focus on some of the questions that we have been receiving over the past weeks. These were in relation to the reason for changing our student information system, the tender process and the choice of the vendor, project governance, and the reason for having gone live with a new system, as we did. And I will respond to these questions factually and not as a defense for where we are today. And secondly, and most importantly, I will share our plan for the way forward. So in terms of the reasons for change, many of you have seen this slide before. There were three main drivers. They were risk driving the change, renewal drivers, and modern technology needs. And I will just remind you that the risks related to the fact that we were operating in a 30-year-old system that was developed on premises. It had difficulties integrating with other systems, and key knowledge was embedded in staff members that are all now retired, with the only remaining programming skills being in Europe, which would be very expensive to maintain. Then in terms of the journey that brought us here, and as I go along the timeline, I will dip into answering some of the questions that I've raised. So in 2014, the system renewal project actually commenced under the leadership of Professor Arnold Skoonwinkel with the so-called Kuhali project. That project was abandoned 3 years later, and in September 2017, Stellenbosch University kicked off an extensive vendor selection process, requesting responses for information from 13 prominent solution providers in the student administration technology space. 7 vendors accepted the invitation and made in-person presentations to a team of experts. 3 bidders were then identified to demonstrate their solutions over a 3-week period, 1 week per vendor, to around 250 of Stellenbosch University's internal stakeholders, and I know that some of you were part of that process. The group of stakeholders included academics, faculty management, colleagues from IT, information governance, student admin, and other PAS divisions. This is a very busy slide. It's just to show on the left-hand side the criteria against which the vendors were rated. So all the participants ranked the 3 providers according to the criteria on the left, and that is how academia was identified as the product, academia by Cerosoft as the product that would be implemented. And the academia solution, as Professor du Plessis mentioned, is also a cloud-based solution, which at the time were considered the way to go in terms of achieving the digitalization strategy of the university, or at least contributing to the digitalization strategy. So we continue in 2019. There was an extensive blueprint and development exercise that commenced and continued throughout 2019 and 2020. We went live with applications and admissions in April 2021. So that one capability has now been live for 3 years. But in July 2021, we paused the project to stabilize the application and admissions environment and to do a project reset. And many of you will remember that first year that we went live with applications as admissions as having been very tough. We also then overhauled our project governance structure and our delivery model, and that is one of the other questions that were posed. So I'm just quickly going to show you what our governance structure looked like. We do have one. And in the top, we have our delivery management block, where we have our governance structures with the steering committee at the top, which also has membership of Deloitte, our internal auditors, and then our project management team reporting into the steering committee. And then for each of the 32 capabilities, a scrum, and that's not, I've also learned that that doesn't only refer to rugby, we have scrums in IT implementations, which is then represented by the yellow circle. So there's a yellow circle for 32 capabilities, and they have various cross-cutting, we also have cross-cutting streams, which are represented by the maroon blocks on the right-hand bottom for data management, integration, training, testing, change management, etc. And then for every scrum, we have 32 scrums that then consist of roles. This is just zooming in on the roles in every scrum per capability and the tasks allocated to every role. And I'm not going to go into the detail there. And then also the plan. So for every capability, we have activities planned on a schedule. So on the left-hand side there, you will see the activities listed for one capability, which then informs the development backlog, which addresses the requirements for a specific capability. And on the right-hand side, you will then see the development backlog, which contains all the functional requirements that need to be developed to complete a project task. So for every task, you have a backlog with functional requirements. So that's just to give you a glimpse into the way we manage this project. So we continue in 2022. We revised our plan after we've paused and stabilized the application admission environment. And we started with our new governance structure. The revised plan was implemented with a view of going live with registration in January 2023 already. But in October 2022, we decided against it, mainly based on the feedback from many of our end users who felt that we were not ready and that the functionality wasn't at the level of maturity that we would wanted it to be. So the work continued. And during 2023, the second semester, we realized that we have to make the so-called go, no-go decision at some point, and that moment came in September 2023. The decision was informed by several dimensions that I've listed on the slide, and it's important to note that that decision was made in September because that was the so-called point of no return, which meant that we were bound to continue with Sun Student, and beyond this point, we could not roll back to legacy. This was a risk-based approach that was taken, even though there were still high risks associated with a go decision. It was considered less risky than a no-go decision based on the project status at the time. And the reason for having a point of no return was simply because of the massive effort it would take to get the system, the legacy system, ready for registration 2024. So it's important to note that as of September, there was a choice to be made to either go live in the new system or to stay in legacy, but both of those decisions entailed high levels of risk. So I'm not going to into detail, but just to give you an idea that there's been due diligence in unpacking the risks for a go decision. These slides I also shared with Senate in November last year, and then also the risks associated with a no-go decision or staying in legacy. So given our recent experience, this decision, of course, raises serious questions, and we can ask about the accuracy of the assessments that we had done at the time. So from 2023, October 2023, the focus was exclusively on preparing for registration, and that included testing and training. We had engagement sessions and communications. Many of you would have attended those town hall meetings. We also introduced a support model that would be implemented during registration period. And then we commenced with registration for the Stellenbosch Business School, the School of Public Leadership, on the 4th of December last year already, and we also went live on the 2nd of January with registration at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, and that moment of go live, it went actually quite well, mainly due to the fact that the curriculum at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences are very structured with few anomalies and exceptions. So at that stage we had some teething problems, but we were encouraged by what we found there. And then to add to our levels of confidence, we actually for the first time ever, we were able to issue final offers to our new first years within an hour of the matric results being published. And on the same day, 3,300 first years accepted their offers, which was a big milestone for the project. So at that stage, we were quite optimistic. But as we launched more capabilities during registration, the cracks started to appear. And here I have a list of the cracks, and I've also shared these with you in my most recent communication, so I'm not going to go into the detail there. But there were quite a few incidences. Many of them have been resolved during the registration or the hypercare period, but our major challenges was with module registration, module lists, as well as our student accounts, as you will know, and then also the disbursement of bursaries and allowances. I'm almost done, colleagues. So just in terms then of the way forward. We have 6 capabilities that were deployed during the registration period. That's in addition to our applications and admissions capability that I've alluded to and that have been live for 3 years already. And then we have others that need to be deployed over the next few months. But we are again at the crossroads, as we have been in the past, over the past few years. We need to change the trajectory of this project. And as a steering committee, we've decided just this morning that there will be 2 major objectives with this reset. To ensure business continuity and to have a much improved user experience, or if you want to put it in a different way, much higher quality of the product that we deploy. So we have a very targeted approach to this. We've identified 3 areas of immediate focus. Those are data, the capabilities that are live at the moment, and then the delivery of new functionalities. For the data area, focus area, we've already appointed Deloitte to do a thorough audit of the data that has been extracted from legacy and loaded into Sun Student, and to highlight the shortcomings for us. They've already, in the preliminary findings, indicated that the technology seems to be working fine, but the underlying data has issues. And they will then specifically focus on the problem areas that I've mentioned: registration, student fees and account statements, bursary allocation and disbursement. And then we've appointed a team that will focus exclusively on data remediation to address all the data issues in Sun Student. You will appreciate that everything that follows now during the rest of the year will be happening on top of the registration data, on our assessment marks that we will have to load, our re-audits, etc. So it's crucial for us to get that right. And then the next focus area is to fix all the operational issues that are still outstanding in the live capabilities. We have a dedicated team for that. And then, most importantly, the delivery of new functionality. So we have reviewed our implementation schedule and plan going forward to optimize this delivery. We will reduce our vendor dependency with immediate effect and only have our critical pathway capabilities stay in Sun Student, and find alternative solutions outside of the system for timeous and high quality delivery and an improved user experience for the other capabilities. So Just to, as by way of an example, our assessments must sit on the registration data in student. I've mentioned progression, degree audit, and graduation. But there are other capabilities that we can develop outside of the system, and where we've identified teams within the institution and also people outside of the institution that are already working on delivering some of these capabilities alongside the Sun Student system. So all of these interventions have been discussed this morning at a special steering committee meeting and have been approved. The other important matters that will receive attention after we've managed this, this crisis, if you want to call it that, from my perspective, it is a crisis. So once we have stabilized the environment and we are set in our new ways of working, we will have to go into revisiting the issues that emerged over the past months. We want transparency from our vendor. That needs to happen now already, and then we will go into a root cause analysis. Of course, we understand many of the issues that emerged during Go Live, but we will do a proper analysis using the information that we obtained also from our auditors to understand why we did not pick up many of the issues during our testing phases last year. And then last but not least, we will map out the road ahead in terms of the vendor, the product, and how we want to go forward with our student information system. I thank you for your time. I know I've given you a lot of information and that there might be more questions. Please feel free to email us at sunstudent@sun.ac.za if you have any more concerns or advice, or that if you need any more clarity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm going to deal with a question that we received by email this morning, and then Prof. Nico is going to handle questions from the floor if there are any. So the question we received this morning was a request for training and resources on tax matters for staff. This is especially important for first-time staff members who are not aware of how to file tax returns and upload their medical aid certificates. It would also be great to have a better synergy between HR and the finance department when staff sends in tax queries, asks the colleague. So let me provide you with some feedback on this. So first, for clarity on who to speak to. So the contact person on tax matters is Ewald Wessels in the finance division. So he's in the remuneration division and reports to Annemie Murray, our director for financial planning and budgeting within finance. So please contact Ewald if you have employment tax queries. For all of the SU staff that belong to SU medical aids, whether it's Discovery or MediHelp, the medical tax certificates are uploaded by the university during the annual SARS employment tax submission. But they are also sent directly by the medical aid to each member for specifically medical costs not covered by the medical aid. And then finally, colleagues, additional tax questions are your responsibility. So if you have additional tax planning that you wish to do, those, like I've been doing for the last 25 years, you have to consult a tax specialist on your own initiative, because you might have idiosyncratic tax needs that you need to discuss with a tax specialist. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Stan. So we have a couple of minutes left for questions, and I'll be glad to take those, and I'll be able to either to answer them myself or direct them. I just want to mention here, I think you heard from the presentation by the registrar, by Professor Retief, Dr. Retief, the significant challenges that result when we do an institutional change implementation like Sun Student, and that we acknowledge the significant pain points and the stress experienced not only by our staff, by our students, but also the members of the team. And I think you will agree with me that it's very evident um, the way in which the team leader, Dr. Retief, is taking charge of this, is taking ownership of this, and I want to acknowledge her leadership in this regard. And in fact, I would like to propose that we give her a round of applause. This is very stressful, folks. En Ronel het heel wat sieleslasie met hierdie storie. Dit kan ek I don't quite know what the Afrikaans translation, English translation of sieleslasie is, but it's tough. So I really want to acknowledge that. So, are there any pressing questions? We're glad to take those. I have difficulty with the lights here, but I think there's a hand raised there. So if you can identify yourself and be quite brief.
Good afternoon,
Yes.
everyone. I'm the social worker at the main campus. Okay, I just want to say that some students, listen, had really had a detrimental impact on our work, especially when we have to assist students with food. And also it was really physically and emotionally taxing for both students and the social workers, because we couldn't be able to assist the students with allowances immediately. We still experience problems where students haven't received their allowances in terms of the remove of food, for example the once-off allowance, where they can be able to go and buy their own food. And our immediate food resources has been depleted. For example, we receive sponsored meal from residences is already depleted. The non-perishable food donation that we receive from the Stellenbosch community and from faculty has already been depleted. And now I have to tell that student we need to be resilient. And my resilience tolerance is already at 0. How can I tell that student we need to be resilient? Because it's because of the system, and this is not how it's supposed to work. Because at the end of the day, we had students that we assessed the 12th of March. Today, the student tells me, you told me it's going to take 5 working days before I'm going to get the money in my bank account. The student hasn't received it. It's because some student system, I don't know. There's an error in the system where the students can't even access these food allowances from the move for food. So I'm just telling you, I'm very frustrated, and this system has already impact on both me and the time with social worker on a physical and emotionally taxing.
Thank you very much. And so colleagues, whilst Ronel is, or if we can get a microphone to Ronel here, just two issues there is that, and as we had a national meeting with NSFAS yesterday, and there have been some delays in the disbursement of their allowances to NSFAS students, receiving students as well, and this is being addressed at that level. But that still does not mean that the issue you speak to, that you have to look this student in the eye, and what that means to you. The other point that I can make, some of you may be aware that I and a number of other Marty alumni participated in the Cape Town cycle tour last week, and we managed to raise almost 150,000 rand in terms for Move for Food. But it's still as I want to come back, yes, these monies will be dispersed, but it is that interaction, that frustration, that is that anguish when we need to look these recipients in the eye without stigmatizing them. Ronel.
Thank you, Lizzie. I apologize again that you have to deal with this. I can't see you. I have to say that we would need if you can send me the names of those students, that would be helpful. My last information from the bursary office, from Lorata, was that we are in fact able to disperse allowances. If that is not the experience, then we need to look into that specific case. I do know that there were delays on this side as well, so it would be important for us to get the names, and you can email them to me, and I will take them up with the bursary office to understand what exactly is causing the delays that you are still experiencing. Thank you for that.
So thank you very much. I can't see them, but is that Lizzie Witwe who asked the question? Lizzie, I just want to also pay tribute to you. I only hear good things about what you folks are doing, so a round of applause, even though you don't feel it. Colleagues, we've reached the hour. There are some boxed lunches out there, but I also want us to be reflective. Tomorrow is Human Rights Day. It's the 21st of March. And we need to reflect on where Human Rights Day, where it comes from. I attended a lecture by the 18th Annual Human Rights Lecture by Justice Jody Collipin last night at the Faculty of Law, where he spoke on 30 years into democracy and the inequality in our country and the socio-economic reasons for that and how we can fix that. And we also need to reflect on what happened on the 21st of March, 1960, the Sharpeville Massacre, where 69 people died as a result of apartheid. So let us think about and reflect on human rights and the Human Rights Day tomorrow. And I thank you all for coming, and I appreciate everything that you all are doing for this wonderful institution. Thank you.